Hello, a very good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the slight delay. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Zhihan, a research associate at SSR. Today, we have invited Dr. Vivienne Ng, Postdoctoral Fellow from the NUS Social Work Department, where she also lectures and tutors counseling theories and social work helping process, where she also received her PhD. In her past direct practice, both as a social worker and counseling psychologist, she worked extensively with low-income families and across issues such as multi-stress problems, grief and loss, mental health issues, alleged child abuse, family violence, and workplace bullying. She ran multiple therapeutic support groups for victims of extramarital affairs and parents of teenagers with gaming addiction issues. Her PhD dissertation, which is the topic of today's webinar, is rooted in children's experience living in stepfamilies with a keen eye on practice implications for social workers. Today's Q&A will be moderated by Associate Professor Noor Aisha, Co-Director of SSR and Associate Professor at the NUS Malay Studies Department. Before I hand over to Dr. Vivienne Ng, I'll first make a few housekeeping announcements. So first, we are recording this webinar on Zoom and also streaming this live on Facebook. Your participation in this event indicates your acknowledgement and consent to this. You may access the webinar recording on our SSR Facebook page after the webinar. Please note that we will not be sharing the presentation slides after the webinar. For Q&A, we will accept questions in two ways. First, you may post and vote for questions via our Poll Everywhere link, which I'll share on the Zoom chat later. Alternatively, if you wish to ask your question directly, you may use the virtual raise hand function on Zoom and unmute your microphone after receiving the cue from the moderator. We will not be taking questions on the Zoom chat and from the Facebook comments section. As we have a limited amount of time, we apologize if we are unable to address all questions. So SSR is offering a new survey design and analysis workshop this November. The workshop will provide learners with essential knowledge and practical tips for designing surveys and analyzing survey data. Examples that are relevant to the social service sector will be used to illustrate key concepts and common challenges faced. In November, we are also offering our Research Skills for Social Services 13-week mentoring program. If you have a small-scale research project you wish to conduct and require research guidance, this may be appropriate for you. So if you're interested in any of our training programs, please scan the QR code on the screen to find out more. So with this, I'll now pass my time to Dr. Ng. Thank you.
Let me share screen. Can we all see this one? Okay. Yes, hi everyone. I'm Vivienne from Social Work Department at NUS. Thank you for taking your time to come. And I'd like to share with you some of my findings and also the social implications from my study that is on children's experience of childcare constellations or childcare practices in Malay stepfamilies in Singapore. And I'm using the multi-voice case study method. So very quickly, the presentation outline would include, I'll share with us the social phenomenon and then the purpose of my study. The research questions, there are three, but in the interest of time for this webinar, we will focus on the more essential two, as well as the sample and the methodology. And this will be followed by the key findings, the children's experience, as well as the caregivers' way of organizing childcare practices in stepfamilies. And then we'll end off with the implications of social. Okay, so I would want to highlight that for stepfamilies, they are different. Stepfamilies come after at least two family transitions. The first one would be the divorce of the couple, the parents of the child. And after that, it will be followed by the remarriage. Yeah, so now the family is into a new family unit. This would be at least the second or third or fourth marriage for the for the one of the parent the child is living with. Okay, so because of this, as we know now, the joint child custody and regular access for parents to their children is commonplace. So the collaboration of childcare practices in step families is a little bit different because it is organized and arranged and coordinated among multiple caregivers, multiple parental figures, in other words. So this collaboration becomes unavoidable. So we are talking about at least two overlapping sets of parents, like the divorced parents of the child on the one hand, as well as the remarried couple on the other hand. So looking at the diagram here, I'd like to highlight some of the complexities these overlapping collaboration involve. Firstly, in the dark blue area here, you will see that now caregiving practices for the child involve multiple caregivers. It could be the mother. The bio father would be the father that may not be living with the child any longer if this is a mother, stepfather, stepfamily. And then it also involves the stepfather, or in some cases, the older sister becomes the caregiver as well. So there will be a collaboration of caregiving among these at least three caregivers. So children would have interaction with the whole coalition, so to speak, the whole group of caregivers, but they will also have interaction and relationship with individual caregiver. Okay. So caregiving becomes the intersection of past relationship and present co-parenting relationship dynamics. So the child has a relationship with the parents, with the step-parents, as well as older siblings who are caregivers. And the child is privy to the past historical tension between the parents, as well as the present dynamics among them. So in this study, we are reconceptualizing caregivers as a coalition, as a group, because it's impossible to neatly divide them apart now in a step family structure. And then we also reconceptualize children as equal and active agents, and childcare practices as the context where the dynamics between them play out. So by reconceptualizing these variables, we are trying to examine caregiving relationship dynamics in step families in Singapore. Okay. So there are two research questions. The two main ones would be, how do caregivers piece together childcare practices? And then secondly, how do children then experience and manage such childcare practices if we understand them as active and equal agents in step families? So I would like to share with you the sample. Altogether, there are 6 cases, 6 research step families, and the unit of analysis is the step family, the family itself. I interviewed 3 members per case, and these 3 members are the mothers, their biological children, as well as one other caregiver of these children. So altogether, there are 6 mothers, 6 other caregivers. In this case, there are 3 stepfathers and 3 older sisters, or 3 older siblings. They are the older sisters of the child, as well as 7 children. They are not 6 children because one child asked to participate in the research. And they're all differentiated by the SES, the socioeconomic status, low and high income families. So what did we find? First of all, among the caregiver coalitions, I would like to report that 2 overarching characteristics stand out. So the coordination and the arrangement of caregiving practices are organized around the contentions as well as the level of coordination. By coordination, we mean the combined efforts exercised as a coalition in 3 main aspects. The leadership aspect, which is the discipline and guiding function of parenting, the efforts and direction in caregiving matters, such as in health, in studies, in school, as well as in friends, exams, etc., as well as the emotional atmosphere. This is about the leisure and relaxation, communication, and giving of emotional support. So out of these two axes, 5 particular constellations stood out. So there are 4 families that reflect coordinated childcare arrangements. And out of these 4 families, there are families that are non-contentious totally from the get-go of divorce to remarriage to currently. They are non-contentious totally between stepfather, biological father, and mother. There are also 2 families that are previously contentious. So previously, they are very contentious. There were a lot of conflicts and tensions, but currently they are okay. There is also 1 family that is coordinated, but they are continually contentious. So up to the point of doing this research, the biological father is still actively fighting for custody. And besides these 4 families, the remaining 2 families happen to be from the low SES group, and they are uncoordinated. One of them is previously contentious, but now no longer, and the other one is continually contentious. So you can see that whether high income or low income, we have got groups that are both coordinated and uncoordinated, as well as on the whole scale, whole spectrum of contentiousness. Okay. All right, so I just want to say that there are 2 significant, let me go back to this. There are 2 significant issues that I want to highlight. The contentious characteristic of the coalition have a significant influence on the coalition composition, dynamics, and leadership. So, for example, in the absence of contention, the coalition leader here, being the mother, have a very strong support from stepfather, and biological father. However, for those who have got previously contentious in nature, the composition of the coalition shifted. There are exits. So caregivers exited and then new caregivers entered for previously contentious one. But there's also one particular previously contentious family where now they're no longer contentious, but all the caregivers provide support and there's a strong teamwork among them. However, although this looks good currently on the statistics on a table like this, however, there is a backstory. So the previous contentious they have now, the overt arguments they have are now converted to covert tension and covert dynamics negotiated through the child Arun. So I would like to highlight him in our sharing further down. So that is the backstory. So for the other 2 coalitions that are previously contentious, as I've mentioned, some caregivers exited and new caregivers entered. Also, the theme of SES, it has a significant influence on coalition efforts and direction, as well as the emotional atmosphere. So I would like to share that leadership and SES has a significant influence on the coalition efforts and the emotional atmosphere. So for example, in the low SES stepfamilies, we can see a pattern where they are lacking in physical supervision and resources for academic support, as well as caregiving structure. You would have known that in the previous slide we shared there are 2 stepfamilies that are uncoordinated, and these are both low-income stepfamilies. They are also lacking in activities for leisure and recreation, as well as emotional atmosphere in such a way that the child will feel safe to confide their problems. This will not be surprising for all of us, as we know that low-income families generally have very, very little resources and time and other financial challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis. But it is concerning for step families for unique reasons, as I will share later. Now, on the other hand, for high-income step families, there is a provision of physical supervision. There are resources to support the children's needs and endeavors, their interests, their hobbies. There is also emotional safety because there's a space for heart-to-heart conversations, or there are rituals to deal with pain, and there is emotional connection, for example, bonding activities. However, I must highlight that all these provision is possible because they are tied to income, tied to education, as well as the disposable time and resources the caregivers have. But this is only half the picture. This is how caregivers coordinate childcare practices. Now let's look at the other side, which is the children's experience. So for the experience of children, this is reflected in 4 aspects: the perceptions of caregiver coalitions, their perceptions of these caregivers, and then the perceptions of themselves in relation to that, the salient feelings that come out of such perceptions, as well as the salient responses they have towards the coalition. And these 4 aspects of the experience of children are also the expressions of their agency. So by agency, I mean that children have got constructive abilities, the ability to interpret, the ability to make meaning, make sense of what is going on. They also have autonomy in the sense that they can set goals. They are motivated by what they are seeing and what they're thinking. And then also they can act on their thoughts and their plans. Therefore, children interpret the relationship among coalition members and their childcare practices. They interpret and then they formulate goals on the basis of such interpretations, and they act accordingly. So I just want to highlight that in all of these, children, those in my study, are actually very, very intentional about it. Okay, so children are keenly aware of the co-parenting contentions, both in the past and how they evolve and change to what it looks like in the present. They are also keenly aware of the relationship dynamics within the coalition, how they play up in the day-to-day interactions over childcare practices. So in short, as agents, these children, they are not passive to the coalition's interactions or relational history or how the coalition piece together the childcare practices. They are not passive recipients, but actually they have the capacity to make sense of and interpret them. This is very important because it has implications for social work, direct practice. When we talk to the children or when we engage the family, is this capacity is this capacity in the children something we harness to rebuild the step family? So as I mentioned, that they distill the gamut of caregiver-child and caregiver-caregiver relationship dynamics. They construct and they construe the importance of caregivers' needs vis-a-vis their own. So as they look at and interpret what is going on in the relationship and in the various aspects of how the caregivers organize their care or extend their care, they are also thinking about what are the needs of the caregivers and what are their own needs. And then they determine whether their needs matter more or the coalition's needs matter more. And they act according to whose needs they think matter more to them. And we found that because of this, children from step families with a strong presence of emotional bonding tend to have a higher sense of agency. they tend to feel like they have more control over the environment. They have more say in childcare practices. So they have a higher sense of their self-agency, their self-ability. Whereas, on the other hand, for children who have high-stake goals, so high-stake goals meaning they have goals set for themselves. For example, some of them feel like it is their responsibility to keep the step family intact. Like their moms have already divorced once or twice, and they do not want to shake the foundation of the remarriage, and they want the step family to stay intact. Or another high-stake goal could be that they want to free themselves from the stepfather's control. Stepfather may be very controlling. He might have used a lot of very strong disciplinary measures, like if you do not listen to me, I set up the curfew time for you to come back by, and if you do not follow that, then I would confiscate your handphone. So they do all they can to not incur the stepfather's wrath, including hiding some of their pain in terms of yearning for their biological father to themselves. Yeah. Another high-stake goal would be trying the best to overcome the feeling of abandonment. There are children who are very close to their biological father, and ever since the remarriage or ever since biological father has exited their life, the strong sense of abandonment can sometimes overwhelm them. And for such children, if they do not experience strong coalitional support, then they have a very low sense of agency. They have no sense of agency in the sense that they don't think they can do very much for themselves, to feed their own needs or to fulfill their own needs, to get their needs met. So for these high-stake goals, I just like to highlight the experience of Hafiz and Amsha. For Hafiz and Amsha, Hafiz is 15 and Amsha is 11. Both of them come from low-income, uncoordinated step families. So the absence of a clear coalitional leadership, and there's virtually no supervision or caregiving structure at home, this translates to having at-risk behaviors go under the childcare radar. They are either undetected by the caregivers or they are beyond the caregiver's control. So, and secondly, both of them do not talk about their troubles or cares. For Hafiz, he keeps the yearning for his biological father to himself. His father has got diabetes and he's unable to work. And ever since he found that out, he has not found the courage to tell his mom or even his siblings that he wants to go back to visit him, for fear of incurring their wrath, because he senses that this topic of the biological father is unwelcoming. So he's lonely and no one knows about this pining. And as for Amsha, he keeps his sadness to himself. For Amsha, he is extremely, extremely close with his with his biological father, And biological father even shift his house many times in order to stay near Amsha. However, due to a very unfortunate event, his father got very angry with him and exited his life ever since. So the strong sense of abandonment is very, very real. So for him, he finds solution in having fun. So another big main theme that the findings have shown is emotional labor. So these children exercise their agency through emotional labor. So what this means is that emotional labor is a term by an American sociologist, Hochschild, to mean that people who exercise emotional labor do so when they induce or suppress their feeling so that they can sustain a particular emotion they hope to make in others. So like if I am feeling very sad, I may put on a straight face outside just so that you will think I'm okay and that you can have that your state of mind is not disequilibrated by me. Yeah. I will share more of this. So the key distinguishing feature of emotional labor is the discrepancy that these children have between the expressions the emotions they express, as well as the actual emotions they feel inside. So there's this discrepancy. And it is a means of how the children would externalize the complex emotional experience within them. And to exercise emotional labor would also mean the children have their own goals of why they want to generate a sense of happiness in the caregivers, regardless of what they are feeling, and especially when they are not feeling good. Yeah, they try to pretend to be normal to give the impression that all is well. So as you can see, it is a very intentional process. They are cognizant with what they are doing and why. So I would like to show you emotional labor, what it looks like in 3 children, Arun, Hafiz, and Noura. And these 3 children cut across both high and low SES step families. So for Arun, he is a connected agent because he's very close to the coalition, all 3 caregivers. However, he's not only connected, he's overly connected, overly trying very, very hard to connect with the caregivers. What is his goal? He wants to induce happiness in the coalition. And because the coalition is happy, they will like him. And because they will like him, they will keep their relationship with one another positive. And most essentially for Arun, that the stepfather will keep his love for his mom. Okay, these are some of the words that Arun actually used in the interview. The strategies he used to exercise emotional labor is this: suppressing feelings of sadness and acting normal, inducing feelings of positivity and happiness. So he would write a card, send it to his stepfather, and tell him that he is very, very happy. Or when his stepfather pray for him on his birthday, he also exudes that happiness. The other ways are keeping to access schedule and maintaining the peace in the coalition instead of skipping access, because sometimes it can be very boring. He relinquished his choices. He let the coalition or the siblings choose what they want to do, and he will just go along with them. Doing things to make stepfather feel like he likes him. So he shows his happiness for stepfather through the appreciation. He will handmake cards. He'll make cards. He'll surprise his stepfather by putting these cards in his stepfather's work bag, so that when his stepfather opens his bag and he reads the card, he'll get a surprise. And usually what he writes on the card would be, I love you. Thank you for taking care of me. He also prays with the stepfather instead of by himself, even though he finds stepfather's prayer too long. And Arun also actively manages the jealousy between caregivers. So I have told you that Arun's stepfamily is the one where the caregivers were previously contentious, but right now they have made up and they have very good relationship with each other. So all 3 of them actually WhatsApp each other on a daily basis over Arun's care. It could be his studies, it could be his exercise or his CCA. However, unknown to all of them within the within the coalition, when he is in his own family, when he's in the step family unit in his home, biological father would text him to say that, or call him to say that he's jealous of stepfather. And then when Arun goes over to biological father's house, stepfather will then tell him that I am jealous of your biological father. So Arun manages this jealousy between the caregivers. He doesn't rat on any of them. On the other hand, he communicates regularly. So when he's on this side, he will say, "I miss you," to the other father, and vice versa. Then on the other side, he will also say, "I miss you." Besides that, he actively obeys the coalition to make them like him. He is affirming of his mother's cooking, which also creates another problem in itself. I will share with you. So basically, he keeps all heartaches and troubles from the coalition. Okay, now let's look at how the other two children exercise emotional labor. For Hafiz, he's an isolated agent. As I mentioned just now, he keeps everything to himself. He tries not to step on the stepfather's toes. He tries to induce a sense of approval in the coalition so that his belongings, especially the phone is like his life, his gateway to the outside world, to his friends, and to the activities he has outside the house. So he will do anything he can to keep the phone, because that's a strong need that he would need to have. Yeah. He does so by suppressing feelings of confusion and unhappiness, and he acts normal. And when there are disagreements, he will stifle them and not voice them. And when he has any altercations with his mom, he would apologize to his mom when he's asked to, even though he would tell me that he doesn't know the reason. So he reduces in intensity when he is naughty, when he's unhappy with the stepfather, because stepfather shouts and screams at him. He would reduce the intensity by trying to show that displeasure only mildly. So for Nura is a connected agent. She is from the high income group. She exercises emotional labor as well. And her goal is to minimize worry and honor the coalition. She tries to suppress the feelings of unhappiness and unfairness when she's at the biological father's house. And she also tries to look dispassionate and plain, and proceeds to listen to the biological father. She puts up a strong front. And this is because Nura is the child who asked to be included in the research. So I've also interviewed her sister. So her sister is the child that the biological father berates the most. He has a bit of an authoritarian coping mechanism, and because of that, he would order the children to pray how many times a day, as well as set a lot of rules. For example, they are not allowed to wear jeans when they go out. They are not allowed to listen to the music. When they are in the cinema, if music is played, they are asked to cover their ears. And then when they are in shower and they hum along, they will be scolded. And for each of these mistakes, they will be punished. So the way Nura cope with it is through emotional labor. She tries to suppress and look dispassionate. She tries to put out a strong front when she's over there. At home, when she feels like her mom favors her older sister more, she tries to suppress such feelings and does not share with her mom how she feels. So this is how they act out their emotional labor. And it is really a form of relational agency where children strategically exercise their influence on the caregivers through the use of their emotions. So emotions is their labor, is a work. They are working with their emotions in order to influence the caregivers by influencing the relationship. Okay. And as mentioned, Arun's relational agency via emotional labor is particularly unique. And that is because he exercised what is called the deep acting. It's a form of emotional labor where he sincerely feels he ought to project positivity and happiness on the outside to the coalition, even though he actually feels very, very sad on the inside. And actually he is very, very successful because his goals are met. The caregivers delight in him. They tell me how much he doesn't like to do his homework, but at one point he decides to change. He's very hardworking. Whatever assessment that the caregivers ask him to do, he will do. He will pack his bag, and he even takes up the CCA that his stepfather asked him to take up. Yeah, and also the stepfamily stays intact. So in his mind, Arun feels that his strategy has succeeded. So his goal is really collective in nature because it is exercised in order to keep the stepfamily together. But at the same time, that overly connected agency is ironically exercised at the expense of his personal needs. So as I have shared with you, he says, when I'm here, I tell Baba I miss him. When I'm there, I tell Abba I miss him. And he actually gestured that he feels cut in half. So you can imagine what it's like for him holding all these conflicting emotions on the inside. But on the outside, he's projecting positivity and happiness and sincerely thinks he should be doing so. So he is an overly connected agent seeking to influence the coalition to the exclusion of his own needs. And how he manages this sadness is by eating, by binge eating. So he said that he eats whenever he feels sad. And he literally stomachs all his painful emotions, which has got long-term consequences because he is actually obese. He's about 145 cm, but more than 80 kg heavy. Even as we are talking about it, I brought pandan cake to his family when I went there for an interview. And when the mom asked him to eat, he actually reaches out and at one go picks up 4 pieces of cake. And so I asked him whether his mom is aware. He says she doesn't know and he cannot tell her. And I asked him, how does he cope with it? How does he cope with eating whenever he's sad? He says he asks his mom to cook curry chicken every day. His mom, and I asked him, surely your mom would be very curious about why you need that every day. He told me, he tells his mom that he loves her curry chicken, and because of that, she's willing to cook that for him every day. So it demonstrates that connected agency cannot be assumed to be healthy and desirable all the time. So children in stepfamilies who may exhibit very caring attributes, very they don't have any behavioral issues, they are kind, they are caring, they are sacrificial, cannot be assumed that they're doing fine. And his high stake goal is that he doesn't want another fallout. Yeah. So this is what he says. I eat when I'm sad, and I want him, who is the stepfather, to like me, and because of that, keep his love for mother. So let me move on to discussion. Some of the challenges faced by the caregivers and children in low SES stepfamilies are uncoordinated childcare practices, as already highlighted, and that there is a lack of attention and resources for emotional needs and bonding. And then also the children are much of in a bind between attending to their own needs or attending to the caregiver or the stepfamily needs. And the implications of this when we work with low SES stepfamilies is that we want to optimize their piecemeal efforts. Whatever efforts they put in, we want to see how we can bring it together and tighten it. So we can also enhance the coalition's felt capacity to influence the children by upping their sense of agency in caregiving. Also to expand resources and resourcefulness for fun and warm emotional atmosphere through free games and free activities and short bursts of fun. So it doesn't have to be an activity that will take a lot of time or be very effortful, but they can be short and easy to execute, and best of all, if it is free of charge. For social work implications, mainly it is working with the isolated agents as well as working with overly connected agents. So when we work with isolated agents, there is a need to explore the children's sense of being negatively influenced by caregivers as the starting point. So for example, for Hafiz, he feels like his life has been negatively impacted by the people the very people who are supposed to be providing care for him, so that it can be our starting point, so that when we do that, we are also rebuilding a sense of connection with the child through the social worker-child relationship. So this embodies that we need to recognize and empathize with the child's experience of being negatively treated or being disadvantaged in stepfamilies by validating the child's emotions. And by acknowledging and allowing the child's emotions, we are affirming their agency. Yeah. So in working with the isolated agents, we want to recover a constructive agentic capacities in these children. We want to help them be in touch with the fact that they can interpret, they can make choices, they can set goals, and that we validate how they feel and what they think. We also want to explore with the children the sense of being negatively influenced by caregivers. As for working with overly connected agents like Arun, from my experience of interviewing him, he only ventured to talk about these emotional discrepancies after he experienced sufficient emotional safety with me, which I intentionally built around social work values of compassion, non-judgmental, and openness. So it is really critical for social workers to create that safe emotional atmosphere and probe in a very gentle way, in a very non-threatening and curious manner. So there is a need to create safe spaces for these children when we work with them. And we also need to track very, very closely in our conversations in order to hear out that discrepancy, if any. If there isn't, then that's good and wonderful. But if there is, we want to be able to discern it and pull that out. And also we want to understand from their perspective the impact of breakdown of the first family. So for that, if we reconceptualize children as active agents in social work parenting and step parenting education and casework and counseling, what we'll essentially do is we want to know what is their idea, how do they construct that experience of or that knowledge that their first marriage family has broken down, meaning there has been a divorce previously, and that family has broken down. It can be a massive blow to the child, notwithstanding the statistics. For example, for Arun, he was only 1 year old when his parents divorced, and that to him, with that constructive agency, the ability to interpret, he sees parents divorce when he was 1 year old as I have lost my family from the very, very early time of only being 1 year old. I was only 1 year old when my family broke down. Yeah. So to him, he held that as a very deep sense of grief. And at the point of research, he hasn't gotten around that yet. And he was 12 years old. Yeah. So it is very important that as social workers, we assist parents and step-parents to understand how this can impact the child through our various programs with the parents and step-parents. So therefore, we want to decipher how problems that spill over, how problems that flow from divorce and remarriage transitions can get recreated or find their way through childcare practices. Because in this study, the context of understanding the relationship is childcare practices. So we have seen that the relationship dynamics, the contentions, how the child got triangulated, all came through the context of childcare practices. And therefore it is helpful if we could discern how that comes about. And it is also helpful to reconceptualize the caregivers and children in step families as equal and active agents. And if we do that, then what's helpful is when children tell us how they interpret the parents' divorce as well as the remarriage, we will legitimize that. That will become a legitimate input as we work with the step parents. And by listening and acknowledging that, we are also helping the caregivers to be aware that it is something to be acknowledged, it is something to be appreciated and talked about. And it is also a tool for them to improve their relationship with the child. So last but not least, currently for step families, we realize that it is not a normative family structure. Divorce is, single parenthood is, but when the single parent remarry and form step families, that step families get perceived as a nuclear family or an extended nuclear family again. Yeah, so there isn't the separate discourse on step families, and because of that, the needs of the step families are not picked up in a timely way because step families are essentially invisible. Yeah, it's not captured as well as on national statistics. Also, there is already now the specialist divorce support. However, I think in time to come, it will be really good if we can initiate conversations to highlight the unique needs of step families, the caregivers, as well as the children. And then we can slowly build from there by advocating specialist support for step families. This would include having conversations with the legal counterpart to underscore such a dialectical tensions in caregiving relationships. Because step-parents have are not legally mandated to provide for the children. And so if the step family dissolves, he doesn't have to provide for the children. And if their biological fathers are not in the picture by then there is even less resources catered for the care of the child. Okay, with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vivienne Ng, for your presentation. I'll now hand over the time to Prof. Aisha, who will moderate the Q&A. A gentle reminder to everyone that you may submit your questions using the Poll Everywhere link on the Zoom chat, or alternatively, if you wish to speak up directly, you can use the Zoom raise hand function, and you may speak after Prof. Aisha calls you.
Thank you very much, Sirhan, for that introduction and also for explaining the procedures of this seminar. And I also wish to thank, on behalf of SSR, Dr. Vivienne, who has kindly accepted our invitation today. Dr. Vivienne, I think this presentation is based on your PhD thesis, and I wish you well in attempting to work on it in during your postdoctoral fellowship at the Social Work Department. Yeah, so before we start asking the questions, there are some questions that have surfaced here. I thought maybe, is it possible for me to say a few words about the presentation? I hope it's okay, Vivienne. So I won't attempt to summarize, but definitely this is a topic of much interest to many of us. It has touched us on many points, not just in our capacity as researchers, of course, but as human beings, as parents, etc. We have always come into, we have always felt concerns for the welfare of a child, right? Especially in the case of families that have broken down and families that are reconstituting in the form of step families. I will not attempt to summarize what you have presented. You have shared with us many of your rich empirical data and findings in this seminar. I just wanted to highlight a few things that I think your presentation have touched on various key issues here. Firstly, I think you have attempted to provide, or rather you have attempted to reconceptualize, right, dominant perspectives about how step families have been conceived. I think here you are saying that, one must also take into serious consideration the agency of the child, especially, right, within this step family coalitions. And then you have also tried to introduce certain new concepts, I think, which are very striking and which are good for us to reflect on, including the concept of emotional labor. And also, you have also looked at the, or rather shared with us certain implications of your study, both on research as well as on practice. And you have raised particular or given particular attention to certain kinds of coalitions, and you have made it clear that, certain agents like the isolated case and the overly connected agents. I think these are issues that you have raised that require us to think about and to pursue further in the course of this seminar and thereafter. So before we start with the questions, Vivienne, maybe is it possible for me just to ask you one question, right? Because maybe just now when you started, you didn't make it clear, and this is an opportunity for you to clarify. Why is it that, you have decided to focus on Malay step families? Because as you can see, all the respondents, by virtue of the names that you have highlighted, they're all children of Malay step families. So if you can give us a bit of that context as to why this became the selection of your focus and attention.
So thanks, Prof. Aisha, for highlighting that. Yeah. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah, I want to focus only on a particular ethnic group to control for our culture so that we can understand it from a homogeneous group. Yeah, and why Malay step families is because in terms of the divorce statistics and the remarriage statistics, the Malay ethnic group is overly represented. Yeah, Malay followed by Chinese, followed by Indians. Yeah, so because of that, I think if we were to target our social work resources, then we need to resource the Malay community first. And also currently, I'm very heartened to know that Vista Sakina from PBIS have already have a committed center devoting to the needs to support the step families. So I also wanted to learn from them how they what is being done and how we can then see how to translate some of the issues to provide support for people from the other ethnic groups. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Vivienne, for that response. There are some questions here that may seem to be related also to this, but maybe I should highlight one, right? This one says that, the title of the seminar series on the webpage is Children's Experience of Childcare Constellations in Step Families. Yet the title of this presentation is specifically on Malay families. And the person is asking, how generalizable are the findings to non-Malay families? So just now you mentioned a little bit about maybe the cultural dimension of that influence the selection of the respondents as well. So is there anything very cultural about these respondents that you feel can group them as different from others? And also, to what extent do you think these findings are also relevant to other ethnic groups, even though they were not part of your study?
Sure, sure. I think that is really a very thoughtful question, and it is a question we all need to ask. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it is a question that we all need to ask. I must say that from the findings, the thought processes, the interpretations, and the actions of the children, and all three are reflections of their participation and experience of childcare constellations. All three very little what's that word? Connection, maybe back to the ethnic or the religious state. Yeah, because they are talking from their experience. There are definitely certain cultural aspects in terms of cultural practices. For example, part of the childcare practices in these families could be religious studies. Yeah, arranging for religious studies. Maybe some want it online, others want it to be in person. And when those that are in person, they may want the biological father to bring them instead of the stepfather. So it comes into play in childcare practices. However, it is not religious or cultural that way. Yeah, it is only the activity that is that has with the cultural group. Yeah, it is the activity per se, but not so much the experience. Yeah. So the experience of the children, as you have heard me share, are really related to how they interpret the experience, and the kind of goals, the kind of mindset that they have. Most of them do not want the stepfamily to break down, to go through another round of divorce, and as well as some of the behaviors and how they cope, in line with how they think and what they plan and how they see the situation. So these three aspects are aspects of agency that we can, so to speak, extend to children from any other ethnic groups. Yeah, because it is the agency of the children and the exercise of their relation of the agency that we are concerned about. Yeah, that's one. The other part of the question, it being generalizable. So this is a case study. Case study is part of qualitative, and one aspect of qualitative research is that its results are not, we cannot say that they are representative and they are not generalizable, but the experiences of the findings provide a snapshot, provide a glimpse of the experience of the children coming from step families and what we can learn from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that
Thank you.
answer that question?
I think that no one else has asked anything related to that or responded to that. I think the next question maybe that we can look at first is about methodology. Maybe in your presentation just now, you didn't say much about the methods that you employed in this study. You did in your subtitle, right, said it is a multi-voice case study method. Perhaps you would like to elaborate on that and what is the usefulness of this method to understand this particular phenomena?
Okay. So I use the case method to look at this phenomenon in step families. By case study method, I build deep and I try to find out as much as I can about this phenomenon. When I mentioned the interviews, they are done individually on a one-on-one, and I usually interview the child last so that there would not be any issues of like backlash later on. I think it is also the ethical and duty of the researcher to protect the children. Yeah, because research with children can be a very complex and sensitive issue in itself. Yeah, but that aside, so case study provides methodology where I can go in with unstructured questions with a very, very rough guide on 4 aspects of their life. Like I would come up with multiple aspects of caregiving areas like health, play, school, friends, problems, exams, and communication and support. Yeah. And then other than these 8 areas, I always leave 2 boxes blank to ask them, are there any other areas of caregiving or caregivers providing care for you that have not been covered, that I have not identified? And those are very, very important areas, I realized. If you would just indulge me in one of the trial, his name is Raphael, that I used in this study. So Raphael put as in one of the blank box, he put daydreaming. So initially I thought, hey, what is the connection between daydreaming to the other aspects of care? It was only in the unstructured way that the interview was carried out, where the researcher tracked very closely stuff that the children bring up, and then we try to identify where that is coming from, experience that they have had, examples that they can give, context that they were in, things that they have said. After when we were going through this interview, he was able to say he missed his father so much that he daydreams about him all the time. So it is not just any casual, open-ended daydreaming. Yeah, he actually dreams that one day the biological father will come back in a big motorbike. And then when he's at the downstairs of his house, he will rev up the engine so that when, oh, my dad is back. And then he will come up to the house and knock on the door. When he opens up, it's a whole set of toys and presents for him. So for him, daydreaming is an important function of care because here he used the word reset. So every time after he daydreams, he will be able to reset and feel okay again. Yeah. So by highlighting this example, I'm trying to say that qualitative research in the form of case study allows me to follow the narrative of the child or of the caregivers that we could tease out very contextualized and person-centered way of how they put their lives together. Yeah. The other part is that after I collected all the data, right, all the interview questions, transcribe them, I would analyze them by going through line by line to stay as close to the ground as possible. So like the step 1 of analysis is to line by line, where to tease out certain common themes that they say. After that, I arrange by small blocks of different sections where certain themes seems to be a bit more prominent than other themes. So firstly, I will compare within the interviews. So because the unit of analysis is the Stepfamily, so I could corroborate the data from mother, from stepfather, from the child, or from the older sister. We could corroborate such data, and that in itself enhances the reliability. Then after that, I would compare and contrast within the income levels groups, and then within the high income, compare across the income groups, the low and the high income. Yeah, so that is some of what I did for the methodology.
There are also questions, thank you, Vivienne. There are also questions about whether you face challenges in eliciting responses from the children. Because it's, as we know, right, it's not very easy to get children to speak to researchers or strangers, right, about things that are very personal to them in a way that maybe some adults can. So how did you manage to get out all these things from them? in the span of during the span of your research? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for this question. And I think this will take another webinar. Yeah, because
yeah.
really working with which area. I love working with not working research, I mean working with children, yeah. And I really love working with children. I love children myself. I think first of all, it's important to build rapport with a child. And a child has gone through so much in terms of their family transitions. It's not easy for them to trust anybody. Yeah, let alone someone, a stranger like me. So it's important for the child to give time and space to size you, the researcher, up. So I separate out my so usually for the research with children or with adults, we will go and tell them what the research is about. Then we will continue with the interview or the survey form or what have you. Yeah, for me, I break them down into different meetings. So in the first meeting when I go, it is to meet the whole family, the parents together with the child. Then I would ask the child if they have any questions to ask me. I will tell them that other children have asked these questions. Maybe you have the same questions or you have a different one. That's all okay. So that meeting with the child, that meeting with them gives the child time to know me. Yeah, you can tell, they are looking at you and trying to size you up. Yeah, that's one. So when I go and interview them, that it will already be our second meeting. So one layer of the anxiousness is down. The second one would be when I visit the family the first time, I can also find out like what the family is like, whether there are other children around, other younger ones or older ones. And if I go around family meal times, bringing some gifts would help. Like I brought chicken wings because it was the only time they could meet me, which is like near their dinner time or something like that. And also I got small, very, very small like stationery for the younger children. So I think that's another helpful point. The third helpful point that I want to share with everyone is I learned magic. Yeah, I learned magic tricks using cards. And children are really, at least these wonderful children that I interviewed, they are really intrigued by the magic cards. And after I show them, they will say, hey, can you tell us what is the trick? Show us how to, yeah. So that we can start conversing on something else other than my research. Yeah, so that is also helpful. And then during the questions itself, it helps if we pay attention to them. I think a common denominator that I could see, I have a hunch over in my observations with them is that I don't know how many of them have got the experience of an adult paying attention on what they are saying, whatever they are saying for that 1-2 hours. Yeah. And just them, it's me and them. And whatever they're saying, I am affirming and I track closely. And also I ask them questions like, are you tired? Do you want a break? Is this okay for you? Do you want to tell me something else instead? So there's a lot of permission giving. They have a lot of say in the whole research process. And I also tell them for those who have got some reservations allowing me to record, right? But eventually they give their permission. I tell them that how about after we do the entire conversation, entire interview and recording, if you tell me you're still not comfortable, then I will delete it. And I'll do it in front of you. Yeah, so I think speaking to them all this, at least in what I was doing, helped them to open up. Yeah.
Thank you, Vivienne. So it's about really listening to them, giving them the dignity and as well as the trust that their views matter and that they, at the end of the day, have the autonomy to decide in their own language, telling them that they have the autonomy to decide whether they are comfortable with you sharing this information for the purposes of your work,
Yes.
apart from the empathy and things like that. Okay. Thank you. Also, Vivienne, there are these questions about, I think there's concern about children having to perform emotional labor, right? And some of them probably in the process having to suppress their true feelings. So the question that is posed here is, how do they cope? Who do they turn to if they need emotional help or guidance with respect to their family relations?
It's a great question. Yeah. I think because of my research, so for example, for Arun, right, the boy who was overly connected and he exercised the most emotional labor in order to keep his stepfamily together at his own expense. Yeah, and he eats curry chicken every day, to obesity. Yeah. And then later takes on soccer as a CCA, but he never gets chosen. Yeah, but he takes it on because his stepfather wanted him to. So, preliminary, I can only say that preliminarily, if the parents can learn how children can cope with emotional, that would be a really good starting point. Yeah. So as social workers, with the vantage point of being able to have access to parents, step parents, and beyond, right? There are also adoptive parents, etc., foster parents. If we could parents like there is a phenomenon of emotional labor. So, and give them the tools to engage the child. That would be a very good start. The other one would be, what I can think of is looking around the child's context. Yeah, family would be one. And it need not be limited to parents, it can be expanded to the extended family, like grandparents. I think grandparents are a great resource because they are usually, some of them, if they're not working, they have more time with this. They watch TV with the children, or they are there at home. Yeah, so if we could also engage these grandparents. The other context that the child comes into contact with the most would be the schools. Yeah. So for those of us who work with those on a educational level development, there are always workshops that we could extend and help them to become aware, whether it is at the level of or at the level of the peers, platforms we could do this with, and that would be helpful. And the other one would be our own social work protocols of children's groups, for example, children's therapeutic groups. It can be a group if we can organize on emotional labor and get children to talk about it, get children to write about it, to create projects about it, and then give them a platform they can share this. So it's a project with children, by children, and for children. I am sure there will be a lot of interest and attention we can build.
Yeah, thank you. There's also another question here about, in the course of your work, maybe, but this didn't sound like it's specific to your research. The question is more generic. It's about whether children's actual emotions can be relayed or should be relayed to both his or her biological and step parents. And how can this be done while keeping the family intact and keeping relations cordial?
Yes. Okay. So I think this is a question of safety. Yeah. Whether it is in the child's safety, in the child's best interest to relay this, and if we relay, what would be our intent? If we relay, what are this? Perhaps the what's behind this question is how do we facilitate a genuine and authentic connection between parent or caregivers, children, in such a way that children, there will not be backlash, there will not be any negative repercussion. Yeah. I don't think realistically it is something that we can do for every family that we meet in social work. But that said, I think some caregivers could be more ready than others. Yeah, perhaps there is more stability in their marriage, more stability in their jobs, more stability in the relationship. So it is able for them to stretch, to be stretched emotionally to understand this. Some families are not. However, I think whether they are or not, the conform my style build warm. So the key here perhaps is on the atmosphere, the work upstream. We work with helping parents and caregivers learn how to build a good atmosphere where the child will feel like they are equals with the adults. And the platform where children can feel equal is when they all play together. Yeah, that is the most likely platform. Where vis-a-vis discipline, vis-a-vis rules and studies and what have you, right? So the play and relaxation and leisure is platform to help them feel safe with one another first. Yeah, if that is missing, then perhaps the work now is to establish that. Yeah, before we take it a step further to talk about emotions. If the parents can just be open to listen to any emotion for a start, I would say that is already a huge progress. Yeah, then we can stagger upwards.
Okay. There are more than one question, I think, which has got practice implications, maybe for social workers and counselors. The comments surround this issue about, the trauma responses faced by children in the cases that you have shared. And what form of training, therefore, should, for example, MSF's family coaches receive to recognize various trauma responses and attachment styles to better support parents, children, and other caregivers? I think in the same vein also, and there was another question that says, might the research findings also change the way we counsel divorcing families? Example, Center for Divorce and Co-parenting. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the great questions. Yeah. These are really very, very wonderful questions. It reflects a lot of thought and I think also a lot of what children may be going through right now. When it comes to trauma, trauma is a huge, huge area. We really, really need the requisite training to reach out to a child with trauma. Yeah, for trauma, actually the baseline, in terms of working with children with trauma, the first step is not even to get them to talk about their emotions, but the first step is to talk about how do we build proper functioning again. Yeah, how can we have stable functioning? It is only when stability in the functioning is established, then we can move. Yeah, so for that, I am not the expert, and I know of and I'm sure every one of us would know yogis. Yogis is really, really the expert on this. So I would, if the people who ask this question, if you are interested, please let me know. I would be really, really happy to connect you with yogis. She runs trauma training for social workers. Yeah, and also she's from MSF. So you would, yeah, she's the best person to talk to about this. But definitely we need that training for social workers. As for your second question about divorce and co-parenting centers, I think it is definitely important because as my study has shown me that the complexities that go into caregiving dynamics stem from the unresolved issues in divorce. Yeah. So the kind of divorce have implications on the kind of remarriage caregiving dynamics. So co-parenting, it would be helpful for parents to be able to talk about what are some things that they can do if either party were to go the road of a remarriage. Because once that comes into play, we have an additional caregiver, we have additional parental figure. It becomes a triangle. It's no longer just about the divorced parents. So I think in divorce support work that we do, there is definitely a place to prepare the divorced couple for the event that one of them or both of them may remarry. And then when that comes, what are some of the things we could predict for them that might have to be negotiated? At least they can start that conversation early. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Vivienne. I am so sorry that, the rest of the participants who have very interesting questions here, I'm so sorry that I cannot direct them to Dr. Vivienne for answers because we have run out of time. And I hope that, we can at some point direct these questions to Dr. Vivienne and that she can respond she can provide her responses and we will be able to convey to you all in some way. So I guess we have to come to an end now, and we want to thank Dr. Vivienne very much for that very, very interesting and very, very, in a way, very perturbing issues that involve step parenting and its impact on children. So let us, put our hands together and give her a round of applause for the work that she has been doing and wish her well. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Prof. Aisha.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone who's here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again, Prof. Aisha, for moderating, as well as Dr. Ng for this wonderful presentation and answers. So greatly appreciate if everyone could quickly respond to the poll that I've launched, and I will pull up the last slide. So this is just an overview of our upcoming seminars for the next few months. Our next seminar will be in hybrid format on an impact evaluation of the Empowered Families Initiative pilot in Singapore. So if you're interested to find out more about our upcoming events and training workshops, do sign up for our mailing list if you're not already on our mailing list. Yeah, and with that, yeah, thank you everyone for staying with us, and apologies for the slight overrun of this seminar, and we hope to see you at our next event. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.